For the mosquito, the cow, the dog, the tree, every animate thing or everything that has life in it is a form of life. It is certainly not life. As the great television series, Life on Earth, is a misnomer. It is not life on Earth. It is life forms on Earth. And the sooner you get this straight, the sooner you'll be more into the vastness of this extraordinary existence that I am about to describe. The forms of life are all in the human brain. All the forms of life that can possibly be are in the human brain. So what is life that comes into those forms, into the mosquito, into the frog, into the birds? They are all forms of life. Like your body is a form of life, and so is my body a form of life. All human forms are in the brain. All animal forms, all animate forms are in the brain. So what is this life that comes into the forms? Because your form, like mine, is nothing without the life that is in it. If the life withdraws, then your body falls on the ground like some puppet, some robot, deprived of its motivation. What is this life? What is life? Yes, I'm asking you hypothetically, what is life? Can it be described, or have we just got to say what everybody seems to say and lift their hands up? Well, life is life. Like they say, like the scientists say, we're looking for life. Well, they have a good idea to look for life because they're always looking beyond where life is. Because life is only in the scientist's body. But he doesn't know that, and nor does anybody else who looks for life outside themselves. But what is this life? You must be looking at it now. You must be looking in your own experience, because I'm speaking of life, not of life forms, but the life that invests, the life that's in each form, and not just your form, but all those animals. What is it? But I shall tell you what it is. Every animate form, every form, not just animate, but everything that has life in it, every form that has life in it, ostensible life, when the form dies, the vital energy that is in the form, in the mosquito, in the cow, when it dies, that vital energy goes back through the psyche, for everything that exists is connected to the psyche. The vital energy inside the body, and we can talk about your body now so that it has some intimate reality. When your body dies, your person goes, finished, gone, forever. But your reality, in the first instance, is the vital life that motivated that animated your body. And that goes back into the psyche. And the psyche is a vast, incomprehensible vastness inside your body and inside everybody. The one psyche, the one wondrous psyche in which there are no persons, no individuals, incomprehensible. And that life, that vital life, goes back into the great reservoir of the psyche of vital life. Meaning everything that dies, the mosquito that you might have killed last night, the vital life in it goes back into the psyche. The flies that we kill, the vital life goes back into the psyche. Everybody who dies, the vital life, not the person, the vital life, the very means of life in the body goes back into the psyche and mixes with the whole. And then what happens? Well, what makes the grass grow? What makes the sap climb up the tree? Or what makes life reproduce itself here in form? Or what makes you move your body? What makes you unable to keep still? Or what makes you always thinking, which is a form of life? Or what makes you emotional, which is a form of life? What makes you unable to stay in one place for long, that you've got to get up and walk and do and perform? What is this enormous pressure that makes the grass grow? It is life. It is life in the psyche, life that has lived, a life that has experienced like being in life form, the enormous pressure of us to do everything. Is that life pressing on the form, on our forms and every form, pressing to live again, pressing to experience again? For what has died, the vitality wants to re-experience again. And so, this is this enormous cyclic movement that has nothing whatever to do with that terrible Eastern doctrine of reincarnation, that selfish, man-made thing called reincarnation, made by ignorant, selfish men who want to go on surviving. It's a means of survival, personal survival, to satisfy the ignorance of human nature. This is a great psychic movement beyond anything you can comprehend or imagine in its reality. So everything that dies here, grass, parrots, koala bears, everything, your mooses, your everything, your seals, everything, the vitality of it goes back into the psyche, which is down here, of course, into the psyche, down, 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 and circulates a magnificent, vast circulation of vital life. And round it goes with enormous pressure to re-experience. And there's only one place that you can re-experience experience, and that's this earth. That's this sensory earth. And that's where the pressure is. And that's why you're driven. You're driven to move. You're driven to eat, not because you're hungry, but because something wants to re-experience eating food. Something wants to re-experience making love. Something wants to re-experience being emotional. Something wants to re-experience what it has experienced before as a vital life, but not as a person. Enormous pressure, isn't it? And how many people say, I feel like killing myself when things are bad and there's a great pressure on them. I want to kill myself. You can't kill yourself. You can kill your body, but you won't kill yourself. All will all come and re-experience again, but not as you. You are just a cell in this great thing like I am, in this great, extraordinary cyclic movement that pushes the sap up the tree. Yeah. That makes the grass grow. Even in the concrete, in between the concrete, you'll always see the pressure of life starting to come through as grass or weeds. You can't stop it. You just can't stop it. It's always pressing into form somewhere or other. And we pay so much attention to the form, don't we? Oh yes, our little life, which is an historical life. What about the vastness of real life before it takes form? What about that? What about getting the idea of what I'm speaking about? Because that widens your perception. Takes you out of this narrow porthole that you have in looking into this existence through your own self-consciousness. Your consciousness of self blinds you to the greater picture of love, of life, of truth, of death. You're blinded to it. But if you hear me, all you've got to do is hear me. You must not try to understand me. If you try to understand me, you're using your mind and you've missed the point. You must just hear me. You must just be open to just hear me and let it go through you. Don't worry. You don't have to hold on to it. You don't have to grab the steering wheel. You don't have to understand. It is the burden of humanity to try to understand everything. All the students in there learning, the poor buggers, have got to try and understand what they're doing. In truth, you don't understand anything. And the more you don't understand, the more you're nothing. And the more you're nothing, the more you are in the state of consciousness of the whole. Because you can only understand the part. And when you understand one part, there's another 10 parts that you've got to understand. And when you try to understand that, which is what humanity does, it keeps making more to understand. Whereas if you would only get the idea of life, the idea of truth, the idea of love, the idea of God, if you would only get the idea of it, you'd be amazed at what happens in you. But then your mind wants to grab it greedily, to possess it, to masticate it, to tear it to pieces like the scientists. And what does it mean? And there is no meaning in understanding at all. No meaning at all. If anything that you understand has no meaning in it. Because it's not about understanding. That's an exercise of the mind. And the mind is the great tormentor of mankind and womankind. Because mankind is womankind. You've got to get the idea. And to get the idea, there has to be an innocence about you. There has to be a willing to listen. To not seize and grab something and then think about it. Because while you're thinking about something that I've said, you've missed the next lot, the next sentence. You're not getting it at all. You only think you are. So would you please Please be absent. Stop being forward. Stop being here. Would you please stop being here in the sense of being anything and just open yourself, because you are living intelligence. Not the intelligence that's learning next door in the university. That's a reflected intelligence. That's an understanding. And you've got to go through it when you're going to go through it. But eventually in the spiritual life, you've got to unlearn what you've already learned. It's not that you unlearn what you've learned as an accountant. It's not that you unlearn what you've learned. It's that you don't think about it anymore. Because the more that you think about anything, the more you reaffirm it, the more you remember. You remember a body of having to learn. And when you remember learning, you get a burden on you of the need to understand. And when you need to understand, you'll be like the scientist, always going into matter for the explanation, into some object, instead of going into your own body and finding the cause, not the effect. So when you go outside and see the birds flying through the air, that is life, needing to re-experience flight. When the worm, you dig up the worm and there it is, struggling in the soil to get back into the soil. That's life as the form of a worm. It has to do it. It has to be a worm. It has to wriggle like a worm, because a worm's got to be a worm. Everything's got to be what it is, but what is it that makes this form move, this enormous pressure to live, and the enormous pressure to survive? Because life, once it is in form, has an enormous, having re-experienced formal life, life in existence. The life form, the form of life, never wants to die. And so there's a great movement in every form of life to survive against all odds, because there is a need in life to re-experience survival under oppressive conditions. So there again, it's again a need to experience survival. Everything is the need to re-experience the pressure of life, to drive you on, to drive us all on, until one time when you can say, I don't need to experience any more apart from what I'm experiencing by the very way of things. That is a release. And you cannot see the vastness of life in its totality until you have given up the need to experience.